Today we're talking about the 2021 film by Jane Schoenbrunn, non-binary filmmaker, and this was quite the debut film. It was awesome for them as well as the lead, Anna Cobb. I mean, Anna Cobb, first of all, absolutely kills it, and I think the direction was great. It felt very COVID project, which I was trying to look up some of the production details, and I wasn't 100% sure if it was exactly a COVID project, but I mean, like, most of the film were just like people in their own houses on webcams because, yeah, it definitely deals with just internet personality and internet space as a world rather than the real world more often than it does in the real world. But I think this movie, it's very interesting. It's very unique, and I really, really liked it. I think that I saw a few Letterboxd comments where they were talking about they're a bit disappointed how it was a bit less horror-y, and I think on IMDb, it has a pretty low rating, maybe like a 5 or something. But I think people are expecting it to be more of a horror movie than it really is. And I think a lot of the horror that comes in, or at least that I felt while watching this movie, was just to do with the character themselves, trying to like get a sense of what that character is feeling in that moment and how their mind has just completely been misconstrued with what's going on. I remember there was one comment, I forget what platform it was on exactly, but they were like, there were like 2 good like horror sequences, but that's about it in the entire film. But I mean, that completely wasn't the point, in my opinion. Like those typical horror moments where maybe somebody feels possessed or you physically see a scare happening on screen, but the scariness, it doesn't come from like those moments. It really is a compilation of everything that has that. And yeah, I think that a lot of people are saying it, and my friend also said it when he recommended me this movie, that this movie captures online culture like no other, at least modern online culture. And it's pretty much just like creepypasta, the movie. The challenge that the characters go through in the movie is very vague and very open-ended. And I think that that's a fun element to have to the movie because it lets the internet, the collective of the internet, decide where it goes. And I mean, if you leave anything up to the internet, we know it kind of, goes down a rabbit hole and doesn't turn out too great. But, oh man, I don't know where to start about the actual plot here. I think that, yes, I agree that it completely encapsulates the modern feeling of being on the internet, like being awake at like the middle of the night, 3 a.m., and just going down weird rabbit holes. I mean, yeah, YouTube rabbit holes where videos just are constantly playing on repeat. In this one, they just like keep on auto playing different videos that have very low views. There was like 9 views, like things like that. And just what people are putting on the internet of themselves, just like I'm doing right now. It's like, I know there's not too many people watching me right now, but I'm still taking my time doing this right now, recording it and putting it on the internet. And there are so many different corners, like an unimaginable amount of maybe like unseen footage or footage that only few people have seen, texts that only a few people have seen that are just around the internet. But there's always somebody behind that. And I think the disconnect between people, real people, and people online is like a huge like talking point to this movie. And just the feeling that it's separating online and physical personalities is like absolutely massive in this movie. It's just like a feeling that everybody knows that I'm having trouble putting into words right now. But I think I read a piece about the director, and they were saying that when making this movie, they were drawing a lot from their experiences being on the internet, those late nights, and how somebody can just pull away completely from the internet, and something that they put online or an imprint that they had on a person is just completely gone. You can leave with no repercussions, just leave whatever you want out there. And, actually, I think the main point that they were trying to make is that there's also moments where maybe you feel that you have gone too far, and then you turn your computer off, and maybe you were interacting with some random person from across the world. You've left an imprint, and then you just log off, and you wonder what happened to them. I think that's also a really distinct feeling that this movie gives, that, yes, there's people like most people in my chat, I don't know. And if I leave an impression on you, like, I wouldn't know. And it's like those people will go around their daily lives, and maybe something that you said, something that you did online is going to change what they're actually doing. And all it took was logging in onto a website, posting something, saying something, recording something. Okay, I've kind of gone down my own verbal rabbit hole here. So going full on into spoilers and everything. First of all, I'll just talk about the actual production because, yeah, it is very minimal. Like I said, it felt like a COVID project where people were just recording on their computers. There's a lot of just low quality footage of even the main character going out into the real world and recording herself just on like a phone or like just a dinky camera on a tripod. There's a lot of that, and I really, really like that aesthetic. I mean, like the online low quality aesthetic of it was completely awesome. And I think these two images here, the poster and the banner here, the colors in that one is really distinct. Like it's just those two images encapsulate the feel of it the best. And no, it's not a found footage film. I thought it was going to be like one of those movies where it's a computer screen the whole time, because it started out with like a one take for like 5 minutes of just a computer screen perspective, pretty much. I think the camera might have actually technically been a bit above the computer screen, but no, it's not 100%, but there's just like over 50% of the shots in this movie are either looking at a computer screen or showing a computer screen, what's happening on it. And I think that's the main world of the movie is in the computer. And her going around her real life is kind of just proxy to that. Pretty much everything that she does in this movie is a part of this World's Fair challenge. And like I said before, an ambiguous challenge where you record yourself saying, I want to go to the World's Fair. You say it 3 times in front of a camera. You prick your finger until it's bleeding. You rub it across your screen. And then you've entered the World's Fair challenge. And like I said, very loose rules. She looks at footage of people online documenting the changes that they're going through. And they're never usually like physical changes. I laughed at one guy that was in the trailer where he's sitting in like his bathroom. It's just like, you know, normal like teenage white guy. And he's just sitting in there. He's like, the Tetris pieces, they keep falling in my chest. The first, it was a cube, or like a 2x2 feeling lump, a square in my chest. And then the next piece was an L. I realized I was playing Tetris. What happens when it reaches my neck? I couldn't help but laughing. I thought that was absolutely hilarious, but I kind of liked it at the same time. So just a lot of the footage is people documenting their World's Fair challenge and the changes that their bodies are going through. And they're always just like really weird, non-physical, unless it was that one guy where he pulled tickets out of a wound in his arm, admit won tickets, which I thought was cool as well. There was the guy who was on a treadmill and he just kept slapping himself. There was the plastic girl. The challenge is so vague, but yet it was so interesting because I think because it's so vague, it kind of hits the nail on the head of the point of the movie being that young people on the internet in this day and age can easily be manipulated or just I feel like manipulated is the right word and isn't the right word at the same time, because it's not like they're being manipulated by one person the whole time, because there definitely is one person in this movie who is behind a lot of her being manipulated, but it's also just the collective of the internet who you wouldn't say they're necessarily doing something wrong. They're participating in this creepypasta, a lot of them knowingly doing so under the guise that it's a game, but all of those amassed documentations of people participating in this challenge bleeds onto her thinking it's real, and then she starts to make some questionable decisions and statements in her own life, like, oh, I know one day I might disappear and nobody's going to know what happened to me. And then saying that she's going to take her father's gun that he doesn't know, that she knows where it is, and shoot him. And if she doesn't have the courage to do that, she's going to shoot herself. And like I was saying, the challenge being vague gives that feeling of how young people can be. There must be another word instead of manipulated, just like influenced by internet culture. I mean, it's pretty much like those crazy TikTok challenges. I think the first one that I think of is the cinnamon challenge. Take a spoon of cinnamon. Could dry out your throat, could make you choke or something. I heard there was bad things about that. There was what else we got? The Chubby Bunny Challenge, where you just put a bunch of marshmallows in your mouth. Then there are short ones that went viral, where it's like people open ice cream at grocery stores, lick it, and then put the lid back on and put it back in. And then, yeah, that one being one of the more obvious, like pretty much just crimes and just public negligence things. There's a lot of ones where it's literally just like harassing other people. I mean, there's so many to count, and just a few that come off the top of my head, but we've all seen it now. We're in 2023 now, and we've all seen those challenges come and go. And actually, one that my friend reminded me of not too long ago, I remember there was one where must have been like 2015, 2016, where it was like a clown revolution. Like there was maybe like a couple stabbings where people dressed up as clowns, and then everybody went to school, and we were all like scared that like we were going to see a clown in Oakville, and that's going to like influence somebody to go out and maybe dress up as a clown. And then, I mean, there was a few stabbings, and then some bad resulted from that. But again, if you go out and you want to be a part of the game, want to be a part of the trend of being a clown and just creeping people out, is that really a huge crime? But yeah, it's again, that creepy pasta is just such an iconic internet term that this is just creepy pasta the movie. And creepy pastas are, I feel like most people have gone and seen, Slender Man. That's like the perfect example of a creepy pasta. I feel like that's the one that I usually remember. Obviously fake, but again, young people can be influenced by that, and it could really creep them. I guess that one's less of like a challenge one and just a creepypasta that I remember off the top of my head. But it's just so interesting to look at the online lore of different challenges, different creepypastas, different trends that happened. And all that to say, this movie encapsulates that 100%. People wanting to be on the internet, people wanting to be YouTubers. The whole movie starts with a 5-minute take of her saying, "Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm going to take part in the World's Fair Challenge." And she's clearly not very charismatic. She's stuttering a lot, but everybody, like so many young people want to be YouTubers. You always hear the old people where they were like, "Oh, back in my day, everybody wanted to be, an astronaut or a scientist or something, or a doctor." And now everybody just says that they want to be a YouTuber. And I mean, it's true, because that's the media that they're consuming. And it's hard to say if it is a problem or not. Because, I mean, if you do find success and become a YouTuber and make money off that, hey, cool, no problem. That must be a fun life. But yeah, so she starts the World Fair Challenge, and she starts to document her changes. And I think some of the vague things about this movie I really liked, and some of the horror came from, because we're really thinking about what she's thinking in this moment. If she thinks that this challenge is real, then why is she doing these things? Like, she records herself sleeping. She's like, "I'm going to record myself sleeping." The first time she does it, she's like, "Oh, that's stupid. No, I'm not going to do that." And then she stops the recording. And I thought that was a great moment, because it's like I was saying earlier. Sometimes you'll go down this rabbit hole, and then you'll feel like it's too much for you. You'll stop it. You'll step back and be like, "Wow, that was really weird." But then she eventually does it. And in the middle of the night, it shows a scene where she's sleeping, and she wakes up for a second, and she does a creepy smile. She goes, and then she goes back to sleep. And thinking, in that moment, I was thinking, like, is she consciously doing this? Or at the same time, if she's so influenced by this, her brain is just so wrapped up in this World's Fair Challenge, maybe her subconscious, in that moment at 5 a.m. where she woke up for just a second, her subconscious went to like, "Oh, World's Fair Challenge. What if I did something creepy right now?" But then I'm sure everybody's had a moment where you're really, really sleepy, and then you do something and you don't remember it in the morning, and maybe somebody's like, "Oh, I don't remember that happened." Because I remember one time my brother was sleeping downstairs. I came downstairs. I was like, "Oh, hey, what are you doing still up?" He's like, and he wasn't like saying anything. And then I talked to him the next day, and he was like, "Oh, I don't remember that happening whatsoever." And so I'm thinking maybe her subconscious in that moment just like made her do that because she wanted so badly to be a part of the challenge. Sorry, what'd you say? You said, "I suppose it's a problem for society in that if everyone is a YouTuber, then how would anything get done?" Yeah, I think that's definitely a broad part of the problem, where it's like, it's not necessarily a problem that people want to be YouTubers, because there's successful YouTubers in the world and they can provide value to people, provide entertainment, but it's become such an accessible job and so desirable. People are like, "Oh, you can get famous by, just like being goofy with your friends, by playing video games online. And it's like, it's such an attractive job to have. And yeah, I guess it is. How could anything get done if everybody does want to do that? But again, not everybody's going to succeed at that. And are they going to feel let down if they don't succeed at that and not feel motivated to do anything else? And who knows? It's very complicated because it's all just it's so modern and nobody knows where it's going to go. And yeah, it's very interesting. And then what else does she do in this movie? Yeah, she has that moment. And then she has a moment where she records herself again and she's just doing karaoke. And then in the middle of the karaoke, she just stops and she screams for a second. And then she goes back to doing karaoke. But every time that she's having these moments, she's also posting them online for, what's his name again? JLB to look at and examine. And I haven't really gotten into JLB a lot. And JLB, I couldn't tell if he was really like the creator of this creepypasta or just somebody who self-identifies as a really knowledgeable person about this creepypasta. And he's the guy to go to. He kind of made himself the guy to go to because there might not be one person behind any creepypasta in the world. But he's the one who maybe saw the creepypasta and expanded on the lore himself because he can literally say anything. He can make anything up as a part of this game and say that it's true. He could manipulate any little kid by his words, by claiming that he's knowledgeable, claiming that it's true. And that is exactly what he's doing. And he was such an interesting character, and I really love the moments where we're in his house, where we see a woman just in the back kind of just walk into the kitchen in one scene. I think that was like the only time she was in the movie. And I was like, yeah, this guy leads a real life. Then I love the scenes of seeing his computer screen where he has his script of what the message that he wants to say to her. And he reads it out perfectly, but he's probably edited that script so many times. He's probably fine-tuned it to make it a part of this story, this game that he likes. And I love seeing all the little notes on his computer. Oh, there was one note. Oh, I forget what it was. It was like in reference to like a certain real-life event where it's like, could this be a part of the game? It's like QAnon. Maybe we'll link to QAnon this game. Something like that. And his character was like just completely creepypasta, internet obsessed, loner type, older, maybe like 30, 40, never shows his face. And to go to the very, very end of the movie, the last scene after he's on a Skype call with her and he's like, oh, I'm getting really concerned for you. Just out game for a second. Are you okay? And she's like, wait, what do you mean out game? And then he backtracks. He's like, oh, I just want to make sure you're fine, blah, blah, blah. Which is like, okay, yeah, fine with checking in on her, but this whole time he really should have known that he's manipulating her and that this was going on, and his just like fantasy about this game has been too much. But she ends the Skype call, says, never talk to me again, pedophile. And then the very last scene of the movie, we don't see her again. We go back to him and he's recounting that, a year later, or it was like 2 years later, she got back to me and she said that she was sorry. We went and got coffee, and I couldn't believe this person I met on the internet, I was seeing in real life, and that I hugged her. I couldn't believe that I got to touch her. And she forgave me, and then we went our separate ways. And at first, it's just footage of, like, a random rural town in America. I think it was, like, in New York State. And then we see that he's just written out the script again. And we don't know if that actually happened, or he's just saying that and putting it out on the internet, which I think is what happened. Because he has like this some feeling of guilt of what he's did, but he doesn't want to own up to it. And I think that's that last scene. I thought it was going to end a bit before, and it's like, oh, why are we still continuing? But I think that last scene is the pinnacle of you can have effect on somebody, and then you're just going to go about your daily life. You don't know what happened to them. And even in his speech where he's like, I can't believe that I met this person that I met online in real life, where it's like, yeah, that disconnect between a real person and a real online person is so different. And it's so weird. And last thing is like, who's watching these? Because I feel like most of their talking was like directed towards each other. They got on a few Skype calls. Most of her videos had low views. But I mean, there was other people participating in the World's Fair Challenge, documenting themselves, and maybe it's just that small niche community just watching these videos, being subtly influenced by the documentations that people are providing, and just those little bits, each little video of people documenting themselves. Her documenting herself sleeping, the guy documenting himself going on the treadmill, slapping himself, the plastic girl documenting himself, the Tetris guy documenting. All of that is just combining into the lore of this game. And the next person is going to watch all these videos and take little bits of it and influence and use that as their influence for what's happening. I think it's a great ending. I think it's a phenomenal ending. And I really did love the movie because, again, I think that last moment is the pinnacle of horror, even though some people might not say that's a typical horror movie scene. There's no scare, but like thinking about what her psyche's like and what's going through her brain at that moment. And just, again, yeah, like what young people can be manipulated by on the internet. And I mean, not even young people, but it's not just young people, but young people growing up on the internet now, they're just being shaped by what they consume. And so, yeah, it was a wild ride at the World's Fair. And I really, really loved it. I thought it was awesome. And I know the director, they have a movie coming out this year called I Saw the TV Glow. It has Justice Smith. It has, I think she was in something as well. Yeah, she was in Bombshell and Bill and Ted. Bigger budget, A24. And I'm very excited for it now. I Saw the TV Glow. Oh, it sounds really cool.